The Chiefs get ready to play the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and Diamond Diehards is on. Joe Rizzo here bringing you football. It sounds weird, but that's what we're doing. And as Dawg likes to say, we are assaulting our audience right now as we go. I mean, nothing like wait until the last second to do a Friday Night Live, literally in the 11th hour of the evening on February 10th, 2023. Nevertheless, late night live on a Friday. It doesn't matter when you're listening to this. It's evergreen as long as you want opinions about the Super Bowl. We have them for you, and we are going to give them to you,
whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. Along with the dog, Jeff Healy. This is Joe Rizzo. Glad to do it. A couple of quick notes. The sponsors, go in to the description wherever you're watching or listening to the show, if it's on the Facebook group or if it's on YouTube or if it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go or anywhere else. There's a description in there. Go check it out and check out our sponsors, Gatto Acupuncture Wellness in Glen Rock, New Jersey. Book online at gattoacu.com or call 551-212-3845. The award-winning Mascolo Group, serving all of your real estate needs in the northern and Pascack Valley and all of northern New Jersey. Rent, buy, own, sell, whatever you want to do. Go to GaryMascolo.com or call 201-615-3665. For all your printing and promotional needs, it's fmsgraphics.com. fmsgraphics.com, a family-run, family-owned business for the last 50-plus years. Go check them out for all your printing and promotional needs. And if you want to be smart, like the Rizzo boys were earlier in the day, you will take your automobile when you were in the Bergen and Passaic County areas of New Jersey to Big Ed's Car Wash at 17-16 Fairlawn Avenue in Fairlawn, or River Road in Fairlawn. I should get that right. Sorry, Ed. Your ride will come out clean. Ed has a 118-foot tunnel. He does everything clean and green. So those are the companies and the people that help us get here. Dawg.
I was gonna test it out actually. If I just put in Big Ed and Fairlawn, I bet you Waze can figure it out. Let's do it. We're gonna do it live here.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, I could tell you that it will.
There you go, Big Ed's Car Wash, River Road, Fairlawn, USA.
Yep.
Got Big Ed's Barbecue.
That's when you get invited to Ed's house, which you are, by the way.
I actually invited. I was coming down 287. I actually thought about doing a guerrilla attack on the Rizzo house, but I was too lazy.
Terrible job by you. Oh wait, that was last week's show.
I'm right there.
Bad job by you. Terrible job by you. That was last week's show. All right, Dawg. Chiefs and Eagles. Eagles get listed as the home team. It alternates every year. Super Bowl 57 in Arizona, home of Boomer Hilbert reporting for Diamond Diehards. Eagles are a 1.5-point favorite. They've pretty much have been right at that number for almost the whole time. The over-under is 51. And the money line for the Eagles is -125. So that means you have to put up $125 to win 100. If the Eagles win outright, then you don't have to worry about the spreads doing that. And the Chiefs are +105. That means for your $100 bet, you would win back 105. That doesn't mean you win $5. It means you win 105. So they're just a very slight underdog. There's all kinds of different props. There's all kinds of fun stuff. But Dawg, when you get right down to it, most people are pretty happy with the matchup because it's hard to argue that the two best teams in football are, it's hard to argue against the fact that these are the two best teams in football playing each other for the chip. Is it not?
No, it's spot on. And, kind of like we had talked, I'll start with the Eagles. That we were sort of talking before the Eagles Giants playoff game. It depended on what Eagles team showed up, and when the Eagles show up, when the Eagles are the Eagles, there's the 1970 Steelers. Yeah, I mean, they're just a dominant team. I mean, as irritating as to sound, but they are the most solid team up and down the roster, both sides of the ball. And when they are playing right, we are just unstoppable. And they really showed it. Against an overachieving, happy to be there Giants team. And then granted against the backup quarterback, back up to the backup on the Niners, which is another good solid team, but really kind of laid the wood on them as well. So I think if that team is out there and firing, I don't think there's any beating the Eagles.
Well, can the Eagles be the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean that's the funny one, right? That's the question, like kind of coming down the stretch, and that's why you sort of had some questions before the Giants Eagles playoff game. Was did the Eagles peak too early, right? Mid-season they were destroying people, and they kind of stumbled a little bit towards the end of the season. A little bit, Hurts was out and so forth. So some reasons for it, but they showed a little bit of like, oh, maybe maybe there is a little chinks in the armor here, and come playoff time, they really ramped it right back up. So, I think they're just rocking. And on the other side, somehow the Chiefs just find a way. I mean, it kind of felt like this year. I sort of thought the Bengals would be able to take him out. Maybe even the Bills. I'm a little surprised that the Bills kind of had the troubles that they did in the playoffs. I kind of thought they were going to take the next step this year. But with the best quarterback in football, with Mahomes, with the Mets jersey on underneath, I'm sure he'll work the baseball on there. So we'll take. I'm sure he'll have his dad's old Mets T-shirt on underneath the pads. But I think this Eagles team is just too complete, even for Patrick Mahomes to work his magic.
Okay, it's interesting that you say that because I am of the other ilk.
Excellent. That makes a fun show.
And
as usual, folks, we literally don't discuss anything before we go on.
No, it's like, if anything, it's like an argument like that we would have. Like, no, we can't talk about this. Save for the show. Save for the show. Save for the show. All one word. We're like beep bopping and slopping around here, talking about what we're gonna do for the show, and then it just kind of pops out. So the list of quarterbacks that the Eagles played this year is like, listen, all you could do is beat the teams that are on your schedule. And for the most part, they did that. They had a couple of slip ups toward the end of the season, but it really didn't cost them anything one way or another. They had a lot of time to get healthy. They've had even more time to get healthy since the time that they had to get healthy, and they've played 2 really solid games. But like this sort of like, I hate doing this because I love the progress that Daniel Jones made this year, but he's not in like an upper echelon of quarterbacks quite yet. And he's probably the best quarterback that the Eagles faced like the whole season, that in terms of like the ways that the guy played, and certainly like of them among the teams that they beat. So now, I mean, like even when they went to the NFC Championship game, Dawg, like Brock Purdy was the story of the season, right? For the 49ers. And then they don't even have to face like a true Brock Purdy because his basically like his elbow is destroyed right at the beginning of the game. And then they put him back in the second half, I guess, like just knowing that he can't throw the ball because at least like he knows the plays, and, Josh, they, it's basically like put him in to hand the ball off or put Christian McCaffrey a quarterback or something like that. I mean, like, so it was a catastrophe, and they had 2 romps. And when, there's been kind of a like different tales in history when we've seen teams like romp through and not be tested. Probably a little more often than not, the third romp is on its way. But a number of times we've seen the shocking flip, Giants over the Bills after the Bills beat the Raiders 51-3. Ravens over the Giants after the Giants beat the Vikings 41-0. Like there's other ones that we could probably go through, but those two stick, well, one of them sticks in my craw because it was the only Super Bowl that I went to, which if you listen to last week's show, you knew that.
So does Mad Dog.
Yeah, so does Mad Dog. That's right. And the dog.
That's right.
Yeah, the DA, by the way, in case people are wondering, this one is DAWG.
Exactly.
Mad Dog Russo is DOG. The Hilberts have checked in. Patty Pat, prediction MVP. 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, KC 20, Eagles 17. That's not a bad prediction. I'm still sort of trying to decide on the over under. I think I'm leaning toward the under. It's just so hard. And especially God forbid now, if the game goes to overtime, you're dead because it's the new rule. It's the playoff rule. So the team could win the toss, go down, score 6, 7, or 8, and the other team gets a possession. So you could go, I figured it out, by the way. You could score as many as 22 more points in overtime of an NFL playoff game now. If the first team goes down, scores a touchdown, gets a 2, they decide to go for a 2. Then the next team comes back, they have to counter, right? They score a touchdown, they get the 2. Then the other team gets a touchdown and that ends the game. You could have 22 more points. So if you have the over under at 51, right?
Be nervous. Be very nervous.
No, but say it's tied 20-20 and it goes to overtime. You could still hit the over at 51. Whereas before, in the regular season, you can't. In the regular season, don't worry, the Riz rule was in play as soon as the regular season happened. You can get a maximum of 9 points in a regular season overtime game because you can, on the first possession, kick a field goal, and then you could score on a defensive touchdown for a maximum of 9. That is the only way you could get 9. But in a playoff game, you can get to 22.
There you go. How about that?
And I mean, the first time that it ever happens, I'm just going to be all over you guys. Riz said it. Here it is. It's on the record.
Now that's the balls move. If you get out and score a touchdown, you go for the 1 or go for the 2.
Well, if you look at the history of the Chiefs, right? And the reason why the rule was basically changed was because of them.
Yeah.
They get unstoppable. If the defense is just gassed at the end of a game, and you don't want to leave it up to your idiot kicker. If you're the Cowboys and you got that far, you definitely go for 2.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, actually, if you're facing the Chiefs or someone who is just uncanny with 2s, you probably do get forced to go for a 2 if you score first and then overtime.
Yeah, I mean, there's
the rest of the time I think you go for the kick, right? But if you have someone where it's literally that crazy on it, I don't know. That's a tough call on that one. But we'll see on that.
If you get the 2, you can't be beat.
Well, that's
you
the argument.
Guarantee at least getting yourself the ball back again.
Yep.
So that's really crazy, right?
Yep. That's a fair point.
And
real quick, I just wanted to double back real quick on the top echelon one because I think that's an interesting one with Daniel Jones. What is the definition to you of a top echelon quarterback? Or it's funny, right? There's so many different phrases kind of thrown out. It's franchise quarterback and I mean, I guess franchise, and then sort of all pro caliber, Pro Bowl caliber, top quarterback, as a top echelon, etc. What is that? And that one's sort of an interesting one to me of yes, there's no brainers like franchise quarterbacks, the top 5 or 6 in the league or whatnot. But the whole argument of what can you win with and stuff. And it's funny. I think this Super Bowl history comes back and says you don't need that top 5 or 6 quarterback to win the Super Bowl, in my opinion. It's you need to have a good quarterback, but I think history has kind of shown out that's not actually true. That you need to have the top 5 or 6, and or even the quote unquote franchise quarterback. I don't know. I always sort of found it interesting, exactly what people sort of consider. Is it top 10? Is it better than average? Is it again, the top 6 or 7 quote unquote franchise quarterbacks, we'd also call it. How would you define top echelon?
I'm gonna take a different tact on this. I think the game in the last like 2 or 3 years is starting to morph back a little bit to the point where it's reasonable to believe that you don't need one anymore to win a Super Bowl, although having one really, really, really helps.
Yeah.
And the reason is this. It's because of the salary cap and the salary structure and the fact that teams have started to spend $40 million plus per year on their salary cap at that one position for the starter. And some teams are spending, you know, a pretty big chunk on getting a solid backup too. That's a lot of cap. Like even with the NFL's cap being very, you know, high compared to like other sports. I mean, you have 53 players and, you know, plus other guys. But now when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, it's such an advantage if he's Joe Burrow. Like,
Yeah.
It's a huge advantage. Like you look at the Bengals and you're like, how did the Bengals basically just kind of like they had the game, I feel like, against the Chiefs, and they sort of just blew it. And if you really look at it, you're like, yeah, they're good.
They pulled an Andy Reid from back in the day.
Yeah, kind of like, but they're I mean, especially their offensive line was so banged up and they're just throwing people out there. But like Burrow covers up for so many of their warts because the fact that he's still on his rookie deal means that the guys that you don't see are maybe the 6th, 7th, and 8th offensive linemen that they could pay a little bit more to have. And so when those other guys get hurt, they plug them in and they don't lose as much as, say, you know, an Eagles would lose with no, the Eagles are the worst example because they have Jalen Hurts.
The Eagles are actually an example of your
right. As the Chiefs would lose, the Chiefs would lose if they lost, you know, one of their big guys. Like they can't really afford to do that because they, you know, unless they've had good backups that they've been able to get like through the draft. Now, a lot of people will say that's the difference in the Chiefs this year. That's why they look a little bit more dangerous. They got rid of Tyreek Hill, which is a horribly difficult decision, right? Because how much would you like to be walking into the Super Bowl now with Tyreek Hill? Well, at the expense of, you know, maybe a few in your front 7 that are really, really good as opposed to just good. Like that might make the difference in the game. And now you could play these things a little bit in the margin, but still in the end, when you get down to that single game, I think in my definition to actually answer the question, it's not a number of guys. It's just the individuals. And to me, it's still the eye test. It's still the eye test and the gut test. You look at Patrick Mahomes, and if you've been watching football as long as we have, you know that he is different. Yeah. You could just see it. You could see it. He's just a different level of player. He's got Brady's competitiveness, and he's got, you know, Russell Wilson's elusiveness, and he's got Justin Herbert, you know, type arm, right? Like, I mean, he's sort of,
he reminds me of Rodgers a lot,
yeah,
like back in the day, right? Like able to make something out of nothing and will do, and throwing up sort of like weird balls. You're like, what? And then somehow this guy's wide open at the other end.
Yeah.
On that.
And just doing different things. Like he just knows how to improvise. He makes a basketball type pass. He makes a left-handed pass. He shuffles the ball away. He makes just a little juke step to give himself a little extra. And, you know, it makes all the difference. Like he completes a 12-yard pass on 3rd and 11 when you're like, nobody was even open a second ago. And that extra moment that he made a move. I mean, that's what it is. And there's less and less guys now that have it. Brady obviously was on his own different level because he just always figured out a way to win. And he did a lot of it on will, probably more so than talent, will and smarts, but more will, I think.
Yeah.
Like Peyton Manning was more probably smarts. Like he was
Yeah.
always going to get 100 on the test. Brady might not get a 98, but he'll go break the other guy's pencil, so the other guy can't get a 90. So the other guy only gets a 97.
It's interesting the cap, right? I mean, that sort of comes back to like Brady taking less money, like in the sort of second half of the sort of Patriots career with him, and that gave the money to get the the great tight ends and stuff for them to have Gronk and Hernandez and stuff like that for those teams along the way there. That's like you're sort of saying, like the $40 million, can you have a $40 million quarterback and enough to have the rest of the team, right? And that's getting to be pretty hard to prove out. I mean, so far Mahomes is doing it, but we'll see how long you can kind of sustain that along. I mean, it's interesting too, like the guys up front, like we sort of have the debate, like, what do you need? Like you need the quarterback and you need, to me, it's sort of like you have sort of three different, you get the line, the quarterback, and receivers. And I think you need the quarterback, or at least a 50% plus quarterback, I would argue. Right. So top 10 would be great. A guy who will win the game for you, but at least a guy who, will not cost you a game. Right. And then if you have some combination of a great line or great playmakers, like you can sort of find a way. Like, I mean, if you get all three, like kind of right now, like the Eagles almost have all three, right? They're like an embarrassment at this point, right? So they're just cranking away. But, and, maybe some of the Cowboy teams in the past, sort of, back in the day, you would kind of argue had all three going there. But until the playoffs. And then, sorry, Paul, but it's true. But like now, like when you have a Mahomes or a Brady for Wilder, right? Like you didn't need the playmakers, right? Is as long as they had the time, as long as you had like the interior line was okay, and the tackles, they knew how much they could suck and could stay within the pocket, they'd be able to make completions with guys out of the parking lot, as we used to say with Brady, right? Like you'd have nobody out there, and somehow you'd still find a way. And that maybe sort of feels like that's kind of what the Chiefs are shifting towards now. Like where you still have a solid line in front of you, and you've given away your top playmaker guys, other than obviously Kelsey. And Mahomes is good enough to kind of work around it, right? So you don't need to have all three. You need to have the quarterback and one of the two.
Yeah, I think there's different permutations and combinations that you can have. It could be the wide receiver. I think it still could be the running back or the running back group. But the tight end seems to be the one that really helps out, and the pass rush. Fourth quarter pass rush. Okay, fourth quarter.
Oh yeah, going on the other side of that. Yeah, the pressuring with 4, right? That's still that hasn't changed. Now where that comes from may have changed a little bit. It's a little bit more D line versus linebacker like it was back in the day. But yeah, that's sort of the key against the great quarterback the other side. If you can't get that pressure with 4, then you're probably going to be in trouble.
So speaking of that, in the chat, it's if you're checking out the chat live or on the replay, it doesn't matter. You could still check it out there on the Facebook group. That's the only place you're going to find the chat is on the Facebook group. So join it if you haven't done it. Facebook.com/groups/Diamond Diehards. You'll see it as Carol Hilbert. Well, we know that's our pal Boomer. He talks about Brock Purdy, who was like Sean King with the Buccaneers when they lost to the Rams in the NFC Championship game like 20-something years ago. As far as the pass rush, she says Steve Spagnuolo will figure out a way to shut down Jalen Hurts with constant pressure. And he notes his beloved Kurt Warner as a top echelon quarterback. Yeah, Warner's a guy that I would put in that group. I always felt Warner was Hall of Fame worthy, and I was glad that he got in. And that was because of the way he was able to conduct himself at the big points in these biggest games. I like the Mahomes is like a young Aaron Rodgers piece. The thing is, if he wins this second Super Bowl, you got to already probably elevate him above Rodgers, because this will be, two wins and 3 appearances for him. So he's on this like record kind of track, and I think this is a big one. I mean, if he wins this one, like I think he's got a shot to win, a lot of these close ones, if that makes sense. Like, I just feel like he's always going to have a little bit of an edge for a long enough time. And that between him and Reed and, the way that they construct their team, that they'll be able to just keep figuring it out. On the other hand, if the Eagles win it, I think that we've really maybe ushered in where teams are going to spend possibly a little bit less on the quarterback and fortify all the other units on the team, like, both lines and, deeper in the front seven. Get yourself, maybe a stud receiver, and then that's going to become the formula. Like, just get a little bit more of the depth and have the depth there that some of these other teams just can't afford. They just can't, unless they hit big in a draft or 2 consecutive drafts, like, getting 4th round picks that step in and play every down for you. It's like, it's so hard to do. It's so hard. Like, you're lucky if you get one of those guys. And sometimes these teams will hit on 4 or 5 of them over like a 2-year span. And it makes a huge difference. It's just hard to get players that are,
you hit on those 4th rounders also, and that gives you, that's like, you just can go ahead and sign that second awesome edge rusher, or like your wide receiver 2 or something like that, or your cornerback 2 or even cornerback 1, right? Just from the savings of getting and hitting those 3rd and 4th round guys, put that money together, and boom, there's your 10-15 million for another playmaking position.
I think the good example right now to look at is, first of all, these 2 teams are a perfect contrast in it, right? You like, people say, here's one thing that I've heard said a bunch of times. Mahomes is definitely the best player that's on the field, but 2 through 53, the Eagles are better. And I don't know how people are missing this. No, the Chiefs have the 2 best players on the field. Okay. And maybe 3 through 53, the Eagles are better, but they don't need, the Eagles don't have a guy on their team that's better than Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce.
Yeah. And the combo is unbelievable. The 2 of them together. So
that's a lethal combination. And, they have some pretty darn good players on defense too. So I actually think,
I don't know about this bag splits thing, by the way, that Boomer's talking.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. That line, let me tell you, the Giants defensive line is pretty good, and they get a couple pretty good edge rushers. And Wink knows how to bring the pain. If you're running to that brick wall, that offensive line, that's good luck. You're gonna need to pull something, because let me tell you,
there's ways to do it. There's ways to do it. The first way is make the Eagles play from behind.
Yes.
Make them play from behind, right? Make them then a little bit more predictable. Take the run away from them. And the Chiefs can do that. They could do that. The Giants gave you, in the one game where they were actually competitive with the Eagles, which is the game where they played none of their starters, and they were actually competitive. Mainly defensively, they were competitive. And granted, the Eagles tamped down their offense and they weren't taking a lot of chances. But you don't go after Hurts. You just contain him. Let him stay back there all day. And if he beats you that way, you live with it.
Yeah.
But don't let him beat you with his legs, especially on 3rd down. Don't let him escape. And he'll run himself into some of the sacks if he does that. Also, don't let him make the big play on the first play of the game. He's done that in both playoff games. It set the tone of both of these playoff games. If you win the coin toss, take the fucking ball. How about that, guys? And nobody has won the coin toss and won the Super Bowl since the Seahawks.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Good stuff. Yeah, it should be. The great thing's gonna be with Mahomes, almost no matter what's going on with the score. Not good. I don't want to spoil it on here. It just feels like you're gonna have to keep watching the game, right? Like, the Eagles gonna be up 2 touchdowns and driving in the 3rd quarter, and you're still like, Mahomes will still come back.
Well, you know what? Like, I felt like that in the game that they lost to the Bucks. and it just like never happened.
Yeah.
But you had the whole thing with like Andy Reid's son with the car accident with the little girl, you know, and like that took a lot of the starch out of
Yeah.
them, I think. And then you had the offensive line was just completely decimated. The Bucks front line on defense was like the strength of the team, you know, outside of Brady. And like that just was a, you know, that was a like it was like 9 miles of bad road for the
Yeah.
Chiefs.
And you're facing the GOAT. Right?
Yeah.
I
And
mean, it's,
you know, that game was like that's I mean, that game to me is probably not even as disappointing as Mahomes in the second half against the Bengals last year. Because the Chiefs were more like the Chiefs. And you know, the other one was there were just a few things that were so obviously wrong. And you know, the Bucks just throttled them right from the first snap of the game. But I just don't I see the
I tell you what, that Sirianni though, I am so praying that somebody wipes that smug face off of him. I'm about to, I can't, and I'm sure I think I'd love him. I mean, I don't know. I think the Giants have a little bit more class, whatever. I get why if you're an Eagles fan, you dig the guy. He's not my cup of tea. So if Andy Reid could take care of that, that'd be okay.
You're not the only one who has that opinion, I think.
Yeah.
But listen, he wants you to get fired up. Like he wants you to concentrate on him because then you're not concentrating on the player.
And his team plays their hearts out for him. Right? You have to give him that. That's the primary thing to judge him on, right? So
what's the Eagle coach's name?
Sirianni.
Who is he? I don't know. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. He's not in my head.
Nick.
He's not in my head. I'm sure he's a great guy. I'll worry about my team.
Wife and kids. The dog loves him, but not my dog.
This time the dog walked the Diamond Dog before the show.
Yeah, exactly. But she was still barking for some weird reason as soon as I hopped on here.
Well, that's just she knew we were going live.
She does get fired up.
Late night live on a Friday. All right. So you got the Eagles. I got
the Eagles.
I think it's
we taking the over?
I think I'm going under.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even better. Dog goes Eagles and over. I go Chiefs and under.
So,
and I'm going
I
outright.
do get the under argument though. That does feel like a sucker play on me, and like everyone's been jumping on it too. Like it started 49.5 and up to 51. I'm like Vegas always finds a way. I'm like that
under,
does.
I'll tell you what, under has been big in the NFL this year.
Yep.
Especially in the primetime games, they seem like all of them went under.
Yeah. And you could see, I mean, you got a couple good defenses going at it. So I mean, you could see it gets slowed up a little bit more. I think the Eagles defense is better, but you could see Spags come up with something and the Chiefs getting off to a little bit of a slow start, and maybe the Eagles sort of like driving down but kicking field goals instead of touchdowns, right? So they've been a little bit susceptible to that. So you make a pretty good argument on the under. I'm still gonna go over, but that does feel like the smart move is actually the under. I think
the Chiefs, if they could jump out ahead, I think the way to win this one is to front run.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to have to be in a position to come back, because what I want the Eagles to do is I want the Eagles playing from behind the whole game. Like I don't care if I get the ball first and I get down there, I just want to get the 0 off the board, like Coach Parcells always said. First thing, get the 0 off the board, okay? Get the 0 off the board and then just go from there. But like I think if the Eagles just haven't been in that position, and they also haven't been in a position where they've had a quarterback on the other side who was able to like make plays. Like they led the NFL in sacks for a reason. So at some point, obviously they're going to put pressure on Mahomes, but Mahomes is going to make plays. Like he's going to make plays. And he's got 2 weeks to get this high ankle sprain even more healthy. And listen, in the game against the Bengals, he played the whole game with it, and he was limping around. And in the biggest play of the game, he took off and ran and he won the game with his legs. On one leg, he won the game with his legs.
Yeah.
So
Hurts will probably run him more too, right? His shoulders probably be a little bit better, and they were dialing him back in the playoffs and stuff. So that's something else I think people can look to. Is I would expect to see a little bit more of the Hurts from earlier in the season.
well, I think what you're going to see though from the Chiefs is I think they're going to block gaps, and I think they're going to play contain, and they're going to see if they can make Hurts make some mistakes, and they're going to keep him from running. So if you're going to talk props, let's see if I can open them up here. Quarterback rushing yards. I would like to go, I got to see what it is, but I have an inkling that your boy here might go under on rushing yards for Jalen Hurts. Rushing, receiving props. Rushing yards.
Did they have the combo? Did they have the combo of the two? Fun.
They have what? Rushing plus.
I'm sure
receiving?
they get everything right. No, just both quarterbacks running.
Well, let's see. They have
like I'm gonna guess the prop is probably like 50 yards for each guy. Probably more for Hurts, less for Mahomes.
Oh, they actually have passing plus rushing yards for the quarterbacks. Let's see what they if they have it under. Oh my God, they even have first half passing yards. The over under, I'm using DraftKings for this. The over under on passing yards is 240.5 for Hurts and 293.5 for Mahomes. And you could screw around with it, and you could bet like alternate totals, like 200 plus passing yards for Hurts, but you're 1 to 5. So you have to put up $5 for every dollar to get the lower threshold there. So they make you pay for it. But let me see, novelty props or shit like the coin toss. We don't want that. Rushing, it has rushing here. Okay. Yeah. Hurts is 50.5.
Okay.
And Mahomes is 19.5. So I'd take the
over on Mahomes. I mean, geez, he takes off one time.
Yeah. I mean, but 19.5 that's tough. You got to take off more than one time.
Yeah.
You could get it in one shot.
Yeah.
That's the few.
That's basically like he can't run or like that's the ankle talking. I think that's.
Here's the tough one, Dawg.
Okay.
He's got 20 yards rushing.
I know where you're going.
And it's 27-17.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
And there's 36 seconds left in the game, and the Eagles have no timeouts. He is snapping the ball, taking a knee for -1 yard. -1 yard, and now he has 19 yards rushing instead of 20, and you lose. It's a bad beat.
Sneak.
Or if you have the under, then it's not a bad beat. So that's the whole myth about bad beats. Like for everybody that's getting the bad beat, there's probably a lot of people that are stealing it, right?
Yeah, like they get it and they kneel down 3 times, right? Lost 3 yards, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or he takes a couple steps back, right? Kill some more clock.
But I think the under for Jalen Hurts, the under for Jalen Hurts at 50.5 on rushing, I think I kind of like that.
That's
by the way,
that's a good size nut.
The over under for rushing yards for Boston Scott is 8.5. That's the over under also for Boston Scott touchdowns against the Giants next year.
I was going to say he would be my prop bet for a freaking touchdown. To be like, first touchdown or whatever. Like it'd be Boston Scott pulling the Giants BS.
Yeah, if it was against the Giants, I would
you should forget it. You'd have to pay. That'd be a 1 to 5.
You have to bet him to score touchdowns against the Giants. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's wildly disappointing.
It's like half his career touchdowns, right? Versus the Giants.
It's more than half.
Oh my God.
He's got like 12 against the Giants and like 19 in his career. It's like nuts. It's something like that. Yeah, so that's an interesting prop, head-to-head player prop. I mean, there's so many props, defense and special team props, like Brandon Graham, 0.75 sacks. So if he gets a half sack, you lose, but if he gets a full sack, you win. Chris Jones, 0.25 of a sack. So if he gets a half sack, you get it. Like, you know, that's basically the way they do it with these sacks for these guys. Tackles plus assists. I mean, they go right down to the guy. Field goals made. Each guy is over 1.5 or over under 1.5. But under 1.5, you get better odds for Harrison Butker, and over 1.5, you get better odds for Jake Elliott. So they think the Chiefs are more likely to kick a field goal or more field goals or more than 2. There are so many things to make first interception, or you could bet no interceptions. Like, I think it's always good if you think the Super Bowl is going to be a blowout, like then you start going crazy betting like defensive linemen to get an interception, because in every Super Bowl blowout, there's always a defensive lineman that gets an interception. It like always happens. Like, and they're gonna like you could bet 4 of them, and if one of them gets it, like you could bet any other Chiefs or any other Eagles player. You could bet the field to get an interception. First sack. I mean, there's just so many things, dog. There's so player parlays. Jalen Hurts 30 plus first half rushing yards. Jalen Hurts 30 plus second half rushing yards plus 500. Patrick Mahomes 150 in the first half, 150 in the second half is plus 750. Mahomes 375 passing yards and the Chiefs to win is plus 900. So that's 9-1. I mean, it's like endless. So if you're doing any kind of like prop or same game parlay, like what I like to do is just jack them up, like put some crazy stuff together and get one that's like 100-1 odds, get like 1,000-1 odds, and just do like dollar bets, because if they hit, they're huge. And you could just, you could do 10
and you
of
could
them.
talk about them forever.
Yeah. You hit one, like you do 10 $1 bets or 20 50-cent bets. Like you could have a lot of fun for $10. And a lot of people will say, oh, it's the Super Bowl, so my budget for betting for the Super Bowl is going to be $100, or people will be like, it's 500, or, people who are usually more into it might even say, these are great props. And, I'm going to spread out like $1,000 worth of bets. I mean, it all matters what your budget is. And the most important thing, if you're wagering, is set a budget, stick to it, and just when you look at it, you say, I can lose all this money. I am prepared to lose every single one of these bets, and I could still pay my rent, and I could still pay whatever. I could still pay my child support. I could still keep the lights on. I could still feed my family. And it's, to me,
it's the price of entertainment.
Yeah. It's the same thing.
And if you get something back, that's awesome.
Yeah. Right. It's the same thing as like paying to go to a movie. I'm
never gonna go to casino. Same thing to me. I'm sitting there, I'm playing along. I'm here for the experience and whatever. And if I get something back, that's even better.
Yeah, I'm not like a high ticket guy. Like I like to. I mean, that's the way I like to do it. Last year at the Super Bowl, I was making like $100 bets, which is rare for me, and I was able to, because I usually I want the higher odds and I want the crazy Riz shit to come through, and then like if I hit 1 out of 20 of those, like I'm up.
Yeah,
and they're fun. So, every now and then I switch it up a bit. But it's a great opportunity in the Super Bowl to get a lot of odds that you don't normally get. Let's just say that. But the bookmakers are very smart. Don't forget that. As Dawg said, Vegas knows.
Yep.
He knows.
Yes, they do.
They knows. Um,
That half is there for a reason.
it is. So this is really
So what's the Riz plan for the Super Bowl?
this is I'll just be watching it by myself in the kitchen, like always. God forbid. Like
Get
Debbie will
get
probably
the wings on the counter.
the kids won't even know that it's going on. And you know what, Dog? I had wings and pizza tonight because I figured, well, I might as well just have it tonight because probably by the time the Super Bowl comes, I'll just be eating like yogurt and blueberries or something, like sitting there by myself on the
Yeah.
Fordham chat maybe.
We get
But
we get the wings brought in. So we used to spring and do it ourselves. Now we spring for it and bring the stuff in. So we'll have some wings going and stuff like that. I got my local Elks. I might zip over to it to kind of support them, but we'll see. But
Matt,
probably I'll be around the house mostly though.
Usually at least Debbie Rizzo, like she's there to support it, and she's kind of watching, and if it's a good game, she's paying attention. And last year I went over to my neighbor Paul's house. I don't know if I could do it this year. He's an actual Chiefs fan. Like he's got like a Chiefs helmet and everything. So but he's gonna probably be like a mess during the game. But he's such a dog. He's like, you got to meet my neighbor Paul if you haven't met him.
Like I say, I still have the bourbon in the fridge from the Eagles Giants game, which we haven't hit the bourbon since then.
Oh shit.
Talk about the heavy pause.
Heavy Paul. He's
no. I did learn that a competitive game, the bourbon neats are not a good idea. That's cool. How about I just put a straw in here?
Yeah. Dog, how about some rocks and ginger? Okay.
A little slow you down a little bit.
Yeah. Do it the Riz way.
The ice.
Do it the Riz way a little bit. Slow it down. But my neighbor Paul, man, he can cook. He's so good. Like he'll make the wing. He's not ordering anything.
Nice.
He makes the wings. He'll make like the sausage rolls. I mean, he's oh my God. His head's going to be big now. His head's going to be big. He's got a big head to begin with, but his head's going to be even bigger now. Paul, I love you, buddy. So we'll see. Yeah, usually Debbie Rizzo's kind of watching with me for like moral support. And if it's the Giants, like that's like the one time ever that she'll actually get into football, the Giants, like in a Super Bowl. But she's not really a football person. She's like, she'll watch a Met spring training game over like an NFL playoff game.
She's a diehard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's a total diehard. And speaking of which, by the way, as pitchers and catchers get ready to report, we teased it last week. Mike Puma, the great beat writer from the New York Post for the New York Mets, will be joining us from spring training in a time to be determined, but on one of these upcoming shows. Mike will join us for
always a fun one
for the third time. And let me tell you something. I just, as part of the prep, I devoured his book.
That's a great one, right? It's fun.
Oh my God. Now listen,
it's such an easy read. Stuff flip right through. It's a lot of fun. Great stories. So it's a great concept. Like, I mean, they obviously do it for all the teams, stuff like that. But great vignettes out there and stuff. And it's a lot of fun for any baseball fan or any Met fan. Those are just great.
Okay, so it's called. We're gonna help them sell some books here. If These Walls Could Talk: Stories from the New York Mets, Dugout, Locker Room, and Press Box by Mike Puma. Puma.
It's not that way.
Look, I am
on the
not,
show. It is though.
Now listen, you know that like I'm a good baseball fan, but I'm not. I'm a Yankee fan.
Yeah,
I was locked in to this book.
Yeah, it's I must say it's just fun stories. It really is.
I was locked in. And then I told Debbie Rizzo, I'm like, we have a long car trip coming up. And of course, like, as you guys know, if you've listened to the show, God forbid I actually open up a book and read the words. It's audiobook. I'm like the audiobook king now. I'm like the king of audiobooks. I'm like, this was a great invention. Somebody reading the book to me. It's like bedtime stories, right? I mean, except you could do it while you're driving your car or walking around the neighborhood.
There you go.
Or on a hike.
I was old school. I got the book upstairs, so I'll have it there to show it off.
I'm gonna have to have Puma autograph my audio book. Did you digitally autograph this for me?
Printed out the download.
How do we do that? Should I put it on like a jump drive and you could autograph that? A USB drive? So I just like pounded this book. So I was like, and I said to Debbie Rizzo, I go, you would like love this book. This is all your guys. It's like from 98, really from like 98 to like 2018-ish.
Yeah.
And there's a little, there's a couple of stories maybe here and there, like references from a little before that and some references to, up to like 2020, I would say. But the
meat of it is kind of like the build up to the World Series run and stuff, and Wright, Reyes, and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, like
the guts of it.
Both World Series runs, really, right?
Yeah, true.
Because it starts out in 98, and like it's so many things. As I told Debbie Rizzo, I'm like, it's stuff. There's definitely some new stuff in there, but there's a lot of stuff that happened that you were interested in that you forgot about. So you get to relive it a little bit, but you relive it with like better context.
Yeah.
And like just the juxtaposition around some of the stuff. Like I hadn't thought so much about the Mets in 98, but from the eyes of like New York looking at the Yankees, and like the Mets were putting their thing together, but like I was a Yankee fan, so I wasn't like noticing it. Like the Mets just sort of kind of appeared to me.
Yeah.
Like they just were like there, but then you look back at it and you're like, wow, they really made like some ballsy moves, like to go all in. And like the team that they had in 2000 actually wasn't as good as the team that they had in 99, but they still made it, right? Like, like I thought about it. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Imagine if they had Olerud instead of Zeal, and I'm not knocking Zeal.
Yeah, but I mean Olerud is,
But like that, would it have made the difference? I don't know if it would have made the difference, but like, that would have been, and just like Bobby Valentine and the way he was ahead of stuff on like the analytics and like a great story about, and I remembered it, about how he brought in Mel Rojas instead of Brian Bohannon to pitch to Paul O'Neill, and O'Neill hit a 3-run homer. And Bobby V was like, like not all right-handed pitchers are worse against lefties. Like Mel Rojas is way better against lefties than he is against righties, which was totally true, because you know how I knew that? Because I played Stratomatic baseball, Dawg.
There you go.
Looked at the lefty righty stats. So like in Stratomatic, like if you had Mel
no-brainer,
if you had Mel Rojas pitching against you, like you'd throw any right-handed hitter against him.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't take out like Paul O'Neill to put, Mike Gallego in against them, but like you definitely like were on the worst side of the matchup. And it was just interesting, like that he puts it so well into perspective of like 1998 thought, as opposed to now.
And it's almost like a lot of like sort of Twitter like stuff. If you had a Twitter feed back then, like you would have heard more of those like little anecdotes and stuff kind of along the way. And like you just didn't necessarily really have an outlet for it, right? If it wasn't like going to be like a news story and printed in the paper and stuff, like, and you might hear it from like Howie Rose telling a story on the game or something like that. But otherwise, like, you didn't have that sort of outlet for like the shorter, quicker stories like that generally. Unless you have like a rainy day and they want to extend it or something like that. But like you just wouldn't get those anecdotes unless you're talking to Mike or you're in this sort of format.
Right.
And,
or you really like the Mike Vaccaro going to like every in progress no hitter in at Shea or Yankee Stadium over the course of like however many years, when he's not
the Baxter Industry basically saving his ass to actually get to see the Santana.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
it's like
totally wacko. I hadn't heard that one.
Like, and Vaccaro talking about like how it was crazy. Like he's seeing people on Twitter kind of like tracking him, which
Yeah.
now like in 2023 seems like a total obvious thing. Like people tracking Elon Musk on, and his plane
Yeah.
on Twitter. Well, Mike Vaccaro was like being, sort of tracked on
Yeah.
Twitter in like 2012, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of crazy and that it's that long ago. It was so good. I enjoyed it so much, and I can't wait to have Mike on. Like when we talk to Mike, it's so easy to talk about the current state of the Mets, but I really, really, really want to talk to him about this book. You should totally get it if you haven't. You don't even have to be a Mets fan. If you lived through the period, you'll just enjoy it so much. And if you're a Met fan looking for a little perspective, and you're a younger fan, you'll
Yeah.
recognize the names, but it'll make a lot of these guys much more real to you as players. If you're a younger person that wasn't, around to witness the Mets and the Yankees in the Subway Series, or understand what Johan Santana's no-hitter actually means on the day that he throws it, and how you forget that the next day R.A. Dickey starts his miracle run with a shutout. Actually, was it a one-hitter? No, that wasn't the one-hitter.
I think that was later in the season.
And then
we
the
had like
consecutive,
the whole string. Yeah, he had like the whole string of like the one-hitter, two-hitter, like it was like ridiculous, like scoreless streak, I think, to
yeah.
extend there. So.
And then you like there's just other little details you forget, like in the penultimate game of the season, 2 years in a row, they throw a one-hitter. Well, John Maine was one, and then actually was it Dickey the other one?
Hold on.
And then they lose the division both times. Like shit.
Yeah.
Like the heartbreak of that.
No, was it Santana?
Was it Santana? Maybe Santana was a shutout.
Yeah, he might not have been a one-hitter, but
Maine was definitely a one-hitter.
Yeah,
John Maine was definitely a one-hitter.
Yeah.
And then they lost, and then the next day.
Yeah, Johan like basically threw his arm off in a weight, from what I remember.
Yeah.
And
Maine was the one-hitter, and then Glavine got annihilated in the first inning the next day by the Marlins.
We'll never fucking forget that. That's up to I mean, I'm sure everyone is, but let me tell you, nobody fucking suffers like a Met fan. I mean, that I will remember for the rest of my days, and him nonchalantly, and I get it, and he's not a bad fucking guy for it, but so help me fucking God, when I'm sitting there and he's like, yeah, well, whatever. And I get it. You're a fucking Hall of Famer. Yes, it is literally for you or whatever, but not when you're a fucking Met fan. It ain't. not when you blow it to the fucking Marlins. It ain't. And that and the gambler doing the fucking walk-off loss. That, I mean, I was painting Molly's room in the house I just bought her. I remember sitting there, and I swear to God, I was threw a gallon of paint across the fucking room. I was so furious. I'm like, this motherfucker. I'm like, don't you? And I like, you had that impending sense of doom, and I'm like, he can do it. I'm like, I know it. This guy's all over the place, and sure enough, and I'm like, God damn it. And of all teams, to the Braves, of course.
And with a record number of F-bombs, Dawg completes our Die Hard Dad segment.
Oh, you got me. You know what? You had to start talking 07, 08, and oh boy.
I'm talking about the book.
I know.
No, it was I was reliving.
You've got to embrace the pain if you're a Met fan. That's all.
Yeah, I was like reliving that, and the Glavine thing it made sense though.
It did. When you look back on it, right. Yes, it makes more sense on it. But
and he even
and he says like he was like too nonchalant, and he wasn't trying to be a dick about it.
No,
and like that's the thing. Like nobody wanted to hear it at the time on it. And he sort of says like he didn't come across the way he wanted to come across in that. Kind of like he didn't really pitch the way we kind of wanted him to pitch on that. Like, could you just like give us a shot, right? It was like the home run to like Hernandez, whoever the hell is that Hernandez? Who was the pitcher? They hit the home run off him. That was the final straw. I want to say it was Levon Hernandez, but
No.
100%. No, who was it? He was actually a pretty good hitting pitcher, but still, it was like just the final like nail in the season. That was a roughie. That one. And the 07 was a lot worse than 08. 08, they were all banged up. That was
Yeah,
that was a little bit more like other than fact it was the second year in a row and whatever, but it was the 07 is the one that haunts you. So
yeah, and the other thing was that in 06 you were coming off
this is gonna be our time.
The blown deciding game against the Cardinals, which we were just talking about that because that started the show. If you the greatest play in Scott Rowland's Hall of Fame career was a fly out to Andy Chavez in a playoff game. The greatest catch ever. I contend. Just the fact that Yadier Molina hit a home run later in the game to kind of spoil it was one thing, but like at the time with what was at stake, that's the greatest catch ever. Anyway, so buy the book, and we're gonna have the author on. That's what we do here. And Dawg, I believe for the first time ever, it is Saturday morning live for us.
Super Saturday.
It was a Friday late night, and it has turned into a Saturday morning show now, as we have previewed the Super Bowl, and we're talking about Mike Puma's book, which has turned into a dog bitch session about Mets failures and
it's just a warm up. It's just a warm up. Just a warm up for the next time.
Boy, there were a lot of good things in the book too. Like there were a lot of good ones, right?
Yes, a lot of positivity in there too.
Yeah.
So get the feels for David Wright and all that. So
yeah,
there was some good stuff in there.
The last, pretty much the last chapter of the book.
Yeah, which is a good way to finish it. So
yeah. All right, Doggy. What else? Any other bold predictions? Should we start doing the futures for the Super Bowl for next year?
Well, let's get through this one, then we'll start to roll it forward there. I can start looking at the mock drafts and start getting serious. It's nice to be looking at mock drafts in late January and not like mid-October.
How about those Fordham Rams and men's basketball?
They're cranking away. Boom's been doing some shout outs on Twitter for him. So they've been the real deal. And fans showing up at the venerated Rose Hill Gymnasium.
The oldest.
What they call now? It's like something on the hill. What would they had like a little tagline they're using for that.
I don't know. Maybe that's like
something on the hill. I'll have to ask Jerry and that one.
Whatever. Rose Hill Gym. The Rock Block. Stay tuned for the Rock Block.
Where's Claire? Oh man, good times. Good stuff.
Yeah. So Fordham has the oldest Division I gym in all of men's or women's basketball, and they set a school record with their 50th home win the other night against UMass. And good thing I had a little wager on the Rams. Made it a little more sweet.
That's not a sign of a problem at all.
Yeah, it was like $1. Like I'm trying to come back from the dead here. And we need the Cavaliers to hold on. They're up by 29, or they're up by 19 over the Pelicans, but we really need a few more points from Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. So guys, keep your foot on the pedal there, please.
Cavaliers Pelicans. Oh boy.
Hey, you get the data. I'm agnostic to what.
There you go. That's the right answer.
Teams are.
Good
All right, Doggy. If you like the show, follow us everywhere on social media and tell a friend to tell a friend. And we stole that one too from our Fordham brethren, Bob Papa. Thanks, Bobby. We like the support, and it's definitely been picking up here. So we appreciate it, and be like Boomer and Carol Hilbert and join the Facebook group, because then when we do these live, like we assault you, we just show up live.
Yeah.
And if you happen
We
to
dare
catch
you
us,
to watch.
yeah, if you happen to catch us, join in on the chat. Sometimes we get some really lively chats there.
Yeah.
And we do encourage you to, you don't even have, it doesn't even have to be during the show. Go on the Facebook group and just comment, talk about whatever you want to talk about over there. There's more of those threads that are going on. Uncle Paul doesn't have to be the only one. And, we don't need just only posts from our buddy Jeff Fry, Shigon Nation. You got a major leaguer that posts on there. I mean,
yeah.
So go join in the fun over there. But especially the audio stuff, we need you to follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And we have a YouTube channel that does, it's the videos are there.
That's right.
And sometimes they have a little extra
We
editing.
look even
juice
better
in
than
there.
we sound.
Yeah, the little extra editing juice has been going into some of those lately. I don't know if it'll be this one, but trying a couple new things to spruce it up and spice it up. And if you like clips of the show on YouTube, clip them off and throw them up on social media and tag us in there at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8 for the dog, at Diamond Diehards for me, and that would be pretty cool. We'll be glad to see some of that. Clip off your favorite minute of the show, and you're not gonna get like a prize or anything, but I mean, it'd be really fucking
Give a
cool.
little
if you
shout
did
out.
it.
We'll talk to you.
Yeah, we'll talk to you.
Pump you up.
Sure. Yeah, we'll pump you up. Pal, you might even get invited to our non-Super Bowl party. Deal with it. But that'll do it for a Friday night, late night live into a Saturday morning live. We've done it. We've now done a show on February 10th and February 11th. So it counts on both, Dog. And that's going to wrap it up. We'll be back doing more baseball shows as pitchers and catchers are just about set to report. We'll get the Super Bowl in the books, and then we'll be back at you in these next days doing a lot of baseball and some good interviews and all kinds of new and different stuff. That will wrap it up for the Super Bowl preview show for the dog, Jeff Healy. This is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.